Alright, y'all, I haven't done any videos on this thing. But here's what I'm working on. The main tunnel and engine transmission all started out as a 72 Super Beetle. Let's see, can't see shit in here because it's so dark. This was a full car when I first got it. It was a full 72 Super Beetle. Got it running, drove it around the block a couple of times, brought it back in, decided, okay, well, I'll try and fix all the rust, and decided that was too much rust. So went ahead and I found this cage, or this chassis, on Facebook down in north central Kansas. A guy had built it for a mid-engine motorcycle powered swap or build, and I didn't want to build my own rear suspension and shit yet right now, so I put it on here. We're gonna do 3x3s. So the rear tires are gonna stick out here a little bit more. And I'll probably build it to where it brings it back a little bit. I gotta build some seat mounts for my plastic bucket seats, mount the rack and pinion, and build some front suspension. I have four A-arms that were already pre-made. Some of the same guy that built the chassis built these arms, and I don't know if I like them or not. They're 1.25" 095 wall. You can see some grease on there because I had the tires sitting here with this kind of poking through the bearing just to see where I'd have to cut it to make it match the rear, so that way the front didn't stick out like really far in comparison to the rear. But part of me wants to do the rear, the 3x3s on the rear, so that way I know how far out to come out with the front, but I just don't feel like cutting into the shit that I already have. So I might buy some used arms for the rear and modify those and leave this as a rolling chassis. I'm not done attaching the tunnel to the actual frame itself yet. That's why this is just tacked on here on the front. And then I've got it, what I did here was I cut a plate and I welded it onto the front of this. Okay, that's better. Ignore my booger welds here because they're just, the top here is the only thing that I have welded. I'll weld this here all the way around the tube and it'll be okay. But I took a piece of flat, or a 90 angle iron, and I ground it down to where it follows the tube around, and I welded that onto this piece here, and then I welded it straight down right here, just to give me a flat, good surface to weld the steel to. And then I'll have a couple of pieces. Oh, there's one. I don't know what I did with the other one, but I'll have a couple of pieces also that weld. I'll notch that and weld it into here, and then I'll have that piece there that goes across where this strap is for a harness bar. And I debated on whether I wanted to flip this engine around and do a mid-engine mount, because this is the right tranny to be able to do that, to where you can unbolt it from both sides, flip the diff around, bolt it back up, and then it'll work as a mid-engine. But the problem with that is in order to flip this, and get enough clearance in here for the engine, I'd have to get rid of my torsion bars in the rear, and then I'd have to cut this piece so far up that it might damage that VIN. And the whole point of this car is to keep that VIN intact so I can still register it as a 72 Beetle. The state of Colorado is a pain in the ass to get homemade vehicles and dune buggies, stuff like that, registered without having that VIN intact. So having that VIN intact and having my title for the 72 Beetle, all I have to do is go in, register it, it's a 72 Beetle. It's just been highly modified. When I'm in the car, sitting in this seat, there's almost a foot of clearance between the top of my head and the top of this roll bar. And a huge part of me has been debating on whether I want to cut that roll bar right there and drop it down about another 6 inches. I think it would do a lot for the way the chassis looks. And then I'm also gonna go from here up to that piece there with another bar. I don't have a bender for 1 1/4 inch. I only have a die for 1 inch and 1 3/4 inch. So I think I'm just gonna take some pieces of 1 inch, which 1 inch fits pretty snugly inside this tube. So I don't think it would hurt anything. And just come out of there, come straight, and then turn down and weld a piece onto here, just like I did down here. And then weld this directly to this. And that would be pretty freaking strong. I mean, really all that is to do is to connect that to that, and then maybe run a piece from there to there also, just to add as much strength in here as possible. Because if pressure gets put there, it'll go straight down through there, and a little bit would come out here to this end. Not a lot, just a little bit. And then for this, I have this piece here that comes down and goes under, and it'll bolt on. I'll make some little pads that go from the tube up to that bolt, and it'll bolt on right there. And then it'll come down, it'll come around the back side of the engine. And this will be sitting more straight up. It won't fold back as much. But we'll go around that, back to this, and then maybe have 2 bars that come from there down to there. But all of this stuff back here has to be able to unbolt. So I can unbolt that and pull the engine away if I ever have to remove the engine. As for my steering, I got my upper bar, my tab mounted for my quick release steering wheel. And I don't know if you remember back about a year ago, I went and bought that race car. I was gonna use the chassis for my dad's old red Chevy pickup. But decided to go a different route. So I got a bunch of parts out of that truck. The quick release steering, this is a manual, this is a power over manual rack and pinion. And the power portion of it is all right here. This is just a hydraulic ram and a quick ratio steering box that goes to a pump. But without it, if you just take that ram off, you have a manual rack and pinion. I've got a lot of work to do here. The engine runs, but I want to put a alternator on it, and I'm going to pull this shroud off, and I'm going to cut these tabs off, these ears. I'm going to cut these ears off here, and I'm going to blank them out because I'm not running heater ducts. And then I need to either buy or build a new exhaust. I want this thing to be as quiet as humanly possible. So I might bring it one piece down around, connect the rear into that, go up and over the engine, put a muffler there with a heat shield underneath it, and then a heat shield in front of it, so that way my cold air intake here for the fan doesn't heat the air up too much, because this thing still has to keep that engine cool. But if I was to put a muffler back here and bring it back down around and out, I'm hoping that would keep this thing as quiet as humanly possible, because I still need to be able to drive this through my little community that I live in. And I don't think that people would appreciate me firing this fucker up at 3 in the morning when I head to work. You know what I mean? Right now, I just kind of want to get the damn thing done so I can play with it. But we'll catch you later. Don't forget to like and subscribe.